Would you believe the very first photograph ever taken required 8 hours of sunlight, no camera flash, no shutter, just one man staring at a window, waiting for light to draw a picture that had never existed before in human history? For thousands of years, humans had painted what they saw. Nobody had ever captured it. Until one ordinary afternoon in the French countryside changed that forever, and almost nobody today remembers the man who did it. His name was Joseph Nicéphore Niépce, and he wasn't a professional scientist or a trained artist. He was a landowner and inventor from a wealthy French family, a man who had already spent years failing at other projects, including an early internal combustion engine he built with his brother. By his 50s, Niépce had turned his full attention to a strange and seemingly impossible obsession. Could an image, seen with the human eye, somehow be fixed permanently onto a surface without a single stroke of a paintbrush? At the time, this idea sounded almost absurd. Artists had used a device called the camera obscura for centuries, a simple box that projected an image onto a surface using a small hole or lens. Painters had used it as a sketching aid, tracing the projected image by hand. But the image itself never stayed. The moment you removed the paper, the picture vanished. Niépce's question was different from anyone else's. He didn't want to trace the image. He wanted the light itself to do the drawing, and to make that drawing permanent. Historical records show Niépce spent years experimenting with light-sensitive materials, testing chemicals, coatings, and surfaces in a small workshop on his family estate. Most of these experiments failed completely. Some images faded within minutes of exposure to daylight. Others never formed an image at all. There was no guarantee any of this was even physically possible. He was working from intuition, patience, and a stubborn refusal to accept that light could not be captured. Eventually, Niépce found a substance called bitumen of Judea, a naturally occurring asphalt that hardened when exposed to light and stayed soft in the shadowed areas. It was originally used in printmaking, not photography. But Niépce realized that if he coated a pewter plate with this substance and exposed it to a real-world scene for long enough, the hardened areas might remain permanently, while the untouched portions could be washed away, leaving behind an image that light itself had created. Around 1826 or 1827, historians believe, Niépce set a coated plate near an upstairs window at his estate and simply waited. Not for seconds, not for minutes, for roughly 8 hours, as the sun moved across the sky, slowly hardening the bitumen wherever light touched it. When he finally washed the plate, a faint, grainy image appeared. Rooftops, a barn, the edge of a tree, all captured from his window. It is widely regarded by historians as the oldest surviving photograph in the world. Why does this story matter beyond the technical achievement? Modern psychology offers a useful lens here. Researchers studying long-term goal pursuit often describe something called delay tolerance, the capacity to remain engaged with an outcome that offers no immediate feedback or reward. Niépce wasn't rewarded with instant results. He couldn't check his progress every few seconds the way we check a phone today. He had to commit to an 8-hour exposure without knowing, until the very end, whether it had worked at all. That kind of patience runs directly against how most of us are wired to operate, especially now, when almost everything trains us to expect an answer immediately. There's something else worth noticing. Niépce never lived to see photography become what it is today. He died in 1833, largely unrecognized, years before his collaborator, Louis Daguerre, refined the process and made it famous under his own name. Niépce did the hardest part, the impossible first step, and the world remembers someone else's version of it instead. Maybe that's the real lesson hiding in this story. Not every act of discipline gets credited to the person who did it first. Sometimes the reward isn't recognition. Sometimes it's simply knowing that something the world said was impossible now quietly exists, because you were patient enough to wait for the light to do its work. If you enjoyed discovering timeless lessons from history, subscribe to the Discipline Archive for more documentaries.